Gambling ordinance and then a request for proposal that was issued by the city of Tucson in 1980 with bids accepted in 1981. 10 companies, 10 of the largest multiple system operators did bid a variety of services. And obviously when you get into a competitive bid process with 10 very large national companies, you end up with each offering a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit lower rate. And there was a very, very competitive environment. What then happened in October of '81 when Cox Cable was initially selected, the majority of that proposal then became the license agreement. So actually the contractual agreement between the city and the cable operator are those bids.
But in fact what we've seen is a gradual cutting back of those public service commitments to the tune of almost $30 million, I believe, in the last few years.
There's been quite a bit over a period of time, just in the local programming field where we see local origination and public access. When we negotiated the creation of Tucson Community Cable Corporation, the public access corporation in Tucson, we saw almost a 50% reduction in the amount promised to local programming at that time.
Why do you think that is, Jan?
It was for various reasons. There was a variety of negotiations that led to that occurring, and in order to achieve the goal of nonprofit public control of public access, one of the trade-offs was lesser dollars. And often we saw, not only in Tucson but throughout the country, real excessive bids and people overbidding, and we're beginning to see a tailoring back of that.
What is the responsibility of the cable companies to follow through on these public service obligations?
There's two parts of the responsibility. I think the responsibility of the cable operator, I mean, there's obviously a responsibility to the public, but I mean, it is a business venture. A cable operator has an obligation to a home office and to a board of directors and to a stockholders, ultimately. So those cable operators have a responsibility to return a proper return on the investment to those stockholders and to the people. So they want to make sure they're providing a service that is enough that it's attractive for you as a potential subscriber at a reasonable rate.
But does that preclude the responsibility to the consumer?
The responsibility, I think, to the consumer, and to a great extent, is held in the hands of the elected officials. Ultimately, the regulatory authority and the decisions about what will exist in terms of services that are provided to you as a subscriber rests with the mayor and council in this case. And the decisions about what parts of that license agreement, what parts of that bid can be cut back, and whether things can change, rest with the city council. The question now, of course, since 1984, we have no rate regulation. So the question becomes simply how much can people charge? That's not up to the mayor and council. And then again, the cable operator has a decision about how much you're willing to pay, how much that market will bear.
So what we saw on the tape was a comment calling cable companies essentially unregulated monopolies. Is that your judgment as well?
It's my opinion completely.
However, at your experience on the national level in the industry itself does not consider themselves or itself a monopoly. Is that
No,
true?
a cable operator, as I saw during the '84 negotiations on the Cable Act, cable operators believe that they are not a monopoly at all because of the variety of competition for their services. You can get movies someplace else, you can always watch broadcast TV, so there's, in the cable company's opinion, a variety of competitive services for what they offer.
In the few seconds remaining, were you surprised at the sale after only 2 years by Cook?
Not necessarily. I'm surprised by the dollars being offered.
The $50 million, what appears to be a $50 million profit.
Exactly. I bet Cox wished they had it back to sell it again.
Jan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you both very much.
Sure, Bill.